Time travelers, Merry Christmas Eve. On this day in 1814, the United States and Great Britain signed the Treaty of Ghent in Belgium, ending the War of 1812, marking the decline of American dependence on Europe and stimulating a sense of U.S. nationalism. 1822 is when English Victorian poet Matthew Arnold was born. Matthew became known as a literary and social critic, noted for especially for his classical attacks on the contemporary taste and manners of the barbarians, the aristocrat, the Philippines, the Philistines, the commercial middle class, and the populace. In 1905, when American manufacturer, aviator, and film producer Howard Hughes, who was known for his reclusiveness and for the uses to which he put his vast wealth, was born. 38 years later, in 1943, General Dwight D. Eisenhower was appointed Supreme Commander of the Allied Exploratory Forces during World War II. The next year, in 1944, new and severe rationing of major food items go into effect on December 31st, was announced by OPA. 1951 was when Idris I, head of Sunafku, a Safari Muslim Brotherhood, was proclaimed king of an independent United Kingdom of Libya. 50 years ago today, in 1973, American author and writer Stephenie Meyer, author of the popular Twilight Saga, a series of vampire-themed novels for teenagers, was born. 6 years later, in 1979, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan to aid the Afghan communist government in its conflict with anti-communist Muslim guerrillas during the Afghan War. In 1988, Canada's House of Commons voted 141 to 111 in favor of the Canada-US Free Trade Agreement that is scheduled to go into effect at the beginning of the new year. The vote was definitive, but several pro forma matters still required action before the 10-year accord is technically ratified. So it didn't fully be ratified until after this, and the 10-year accord came to an end, I guess, in 1998. 1994 is when the French plane was seized in Algiers. Four heavily armed gunmen seized control of an Air France Airbus A300 as it began to taxi to the runway at the international airport in Algiers, the capital of Algeria. I'm not entirely sure what they mean by it when they say that it was taxied, but what I can only guess at is based off what I see on like movies and TV is that they might take the plane by itself and kind of like drive it, if you will, but not like drive like a car. I'm not entirely sure how they taxi an airplane to the runway. Um, the 227 passengers and crew members aboard were scheduled to fly to Orly Airport outside Paris. The terrorists released dozens of Algerian passengers almost immediately and distributed headscarves to women who remained aboard, an indication that the terrorists were probably Islamic fundamentalists. On December 26th, after 3 passengers had been killed, the Algerian and French governments allowed the plane, which had been surrounded by police, to fly to Marseille, France. As darkness began to settle over the airport, French paramilitary commandos stormed the plane and killed the 4 gunmen. Some passengers, crews, and police were injured, but none were killed. Besides the 4 that were, or I'm sorry, not 4, 3 passengers that were killed prior to this. While the hijacking was still in progress, the armed Islamic group claimed responsibility, explaining that the action was in reprisal for France's unconditional political, military, and economic aid to the Algerian government, which had vowed to overthrow French authorities. Reported on December 27th that the government had received word that the terrorists had planned to blow up the plane over Paris. After the crisis ended, the police searched the plane and found 20 sticks of dynamite. 3 years before the turn of the century, in 1997, Japanese actor Mifune Tercero, known internationally for his energetic, flamboyant portrayals of samurai characters, especially in films directed by Kawasuke Araka, passed away near Tokyo. 2008 is when the English playwright Howard Pinter, who achieved international renown and was awarded the 2005 Nobel Peace Prize for Literature as one of the most complex and challenging post-World War II, had passed away at the age of 78. The following year, in 2009, the Yemen military made an airstrike against what was believed to be a gathering of al-Qaeda leaders in the southern part of the country. Some 30 people were killed. In 2010, bomb attacks on Christmas Eve celebrations in a village near Jos, Nigeria left 32 people dead. And this will bring us back to 2023. Until tomorrow.